Hey, Cody here with My North. Just coming in from probably my last muzzleloader hunt of the season. Just out here at my spot close to home, right off the snowmobile trail. Basically, I just wanted to give you guys a play-by-play of the 2020 deer season. What happened, what didn't happen. So the first deer I seen was the Sunday before opening day of rifle season. Like I said, I sat in our actually backup gun spot, which keep that one fresh in your head because we have some interesting things that happened at that location. But I sat there and of course, just at last light, had two deer coming in. It was a large doe to my best knowledge, but she got within about 10 or 15 yards of me. And I was using my new saddle and she was almost directly behind me. And it took her actually about 12 minutes before she either winded me or picked me, which is pretty good. So I didn't know if I was gonna last that long. I probably stuck out like a sore thumb, but I was kind of expecting them to come from the opposite direction. So that happens sometimes. But that was my 2020 bow season. Well, luckily my gun season was a lot more eventful than my bow season was. Starting with the very first morning. So I think pretty much everywhere in the Northeast we had really great weather a couple days before season, some lower temperatures, a couple inches of snow, just absolutely perfect. We got a lot of good pictures during that time period, and you could just tell it was good hunting. But unfortunately it wasn't November 15th yet, so that's when our season starts, and it wasn't quite then. Now the very night of November 14th, it started raining at about 8 p.m. and it never stopped until the following afternoon. So of course we got up to go to our blinds in the pouring rain, which honestly isn't such a bad thing. It really knocks the noise down. You can really stealth in, but takes away all the snow. Obviously all the snow melted almost instantly. Not great tracking if you hit one, but hey, that's what we got blinds for, right? You don't worry about the rain. So we thought. We get into the blinds just when you want to in the morning, about a half hour before daylight. I know some people go earlier, but it's whatever you can get people to go. But we get in there and I just almost get sat down, and I'm checking my area. I'd just been in there the day before. Everything was fine. Of course, this is before the rain. So I get in there, I just go to sit down, I turn around, I take a look at my chair, and I see that it appears there's a wet spot on my chair. Oh boy, right? Must have a leak in the roof. Probably is possible. But I said, all right, you know what? It's gonna be a tough morning. We'll stick it out. We'll sit down, we'll make it through. So anyways, I get sat down. It's dripping rain literally directly on top of my head and my shoulder, depending on where I'm sitting. So at that point, I had to do something about it. So it seemed a little bit like torture. So of course I always have a couple of plastic bottles laying around for obvious reasons in there. And I grabbed one of them and I actually whittled a makeshift eave trough or a gutter system to stick into my roof and shed the rain away from my head and my shoulder, which worked very good. But however, all of this time bushcrafting these things is starting to creep very close to opening light, which, as everyone knows, the first 10 minutes, first 15, last 15 is your best time. You gotta embrace the twilight. So I just get sat down, just get settled in, and I'm peeking up into my shooting lane, peeking up. You're just kind of checking for whatever you can see. Of course, it's still pouring rain, so I can't see a whole lot. However, I think that I spot something in my main lane. So I look up, checking my main lane, and sure enough, I can make out some horizontal lines. So I grab my binoculars, maybe possibly first mistake, but I could barely see it with my naked eye. I grab the binos. A buck turns his head and looks directly at me. I believe we got him on camera. He's just a real decent 6-point, not a monster, just a nice 2.5-year-old 6-point that any youper would probably be glad to take. But of course, let's roll this back a little bit. Me being the good hunter that I am, I always wait the first 15 and 20 minutes with my gun in hand, ready to go, looking out the window, because you know that's when it's going to happen. Now, think back that all of the things happening with my roof prevented me from getting in my keen zone of watching what's going on. So, of course, I'm scrambling. My gun is barely ready, trying to get scope caps off. Finally, I get it up to the window fairly quietly, fairly efficiently, but of course, I don't have the greatest scope on my gun. I should probably re-outfit it with something a little bit more powerful, a little bit with a better diameter, because it doesn't let a whole lot light in. Couldn't really make out really anything in my scope. And I looked at my binoculars again, and he was gone. So we missed out on him. He wasn't even at my bait pile. You know, that goes to show you, bait doesn't always help either. He wasn't even at my bait pile. He just came right across the lane. And just like the bigger ones do, you know, they don't take a whole lot of time to stick around. So missed that opportunity opening morning. That was literally 20 minutes into my hunt. I almost had a decent buck on the ground. Had I not had problems with my roof, had I had my gun ready, had I had a better scope, who knows if it would have happened or not. Might have not even had a chance, but you never know. All right, so after that, the next 2 days are relatively quiet. Not a whole lot of action. I actually didn't see any deer the next. Sorry, my phone's shutting off. I don't know if it's too cold out here or what. It's about 28 degrees, but anyways, next 2 days are uneventful. Luckily, the rain stops. We get just a little bit more snow, which is always good. And I don't think anyone really seen any deer the next 2 days. Everyone, I think where we were camping, someone got a 2.5-year-old 6-point, but other than that, pretty slow. So then Wednesday morning comes along. It's a beautiful morning. It's calm. It's quiet. It's perfect. Sure enough, 7:30, a deer walks out. It's showtime. So I thought. So a deer comes out. I'm glassing, still fairly early. Takes me about 15 minutes to identify it as a legal buck. Now I thought it was a large fork, 4-point, 2-point on one side, however you say it. But I have the combo license, so of course I would need at least 3 on one side. Ran a bow hunt, so we gotta have pretty much 2 buck tags, because you don't want to end your season too early. So it takes me a while to even realize he's a legal buck. So I'm already kind of hesitant because, you know, he's not huge. He's only maybe a 1.5-year-old, 2.5-year-old, which no big deal, but I really don't like shooting immature bucks, but I will, but not on the 3rd day. So long story short, I let him walk. I chose not to take him. You know, let him hopefully mature the next year to a perfectly sized shooter buck, probably like the one that I missed out on opening morning. So I let him walk. No more activity for the rest of the morning. Then Thursday comes, another great morning, but never really seen anything. And then Thursday night comes. A large deer comes out just at twilight, you know, just when you're waiting for them. Really gets your heart pumping. But you know, looking through the glass, and it's just a large doe. So I thought, this is how dark it is in there. So a large doe, she's in there for a while. It's starting to get a little breezy and precipitation, so I actually think I snuck out of my blind without spooking the deer, not spooking it too bad. But long story short, I checked the trail cam the next morning, and it was actually a little spike horn, but it had a decent sized body on him. Of course, I wouldn't have shot him, nor would I have legally been able to, but you know, seen a deer Thursday as well. So then we get to Friday. So Friday morning, head out. Another great morning. We had great weather. It's just a little too warm and really no snow. So by this point, most of the snow had melted off. Deer are still eating the heck out of our bait. We're having to replace bait quite a bit after that. So about 7:45 this morning, that fork with the small brow tine comes back in. Sorry, I almost dropped the phone there. He comes back in. So long story short, he's in for a while again. I decide not to take him again. Again, I can legally do so, but he's just on the small side. I don't really want to take him, so I let him walk again. May have been a mistake, but we're having opportunities, so, you know, what's the chance another big one will come in? We've had big ones coming in, you know, well into a couple days into season. Not much further than that, but a couple days in. Other than that, I headed in for a couple days. I hunted for a week straight there, so I put in my hours, and you know, I had great encounters as well. So I had a couple things to show for it. Nothing on the ground, but you know, I had encounters with ones I would have taken and ones I also ended up passing. So then we'll fast forward to next week, where things got a little bit more interesting. That night I get a call as I'm leaving the tower spot. My father-in-law says, I hit one. I have to go look for it. I can't find any blood or anything, but I know I hit it. So we go, we check it, and after about 20 minutes of methodically searching, you know, small circles, everything you're supposed to do, I hear him say, I found him. Yeah, I went about 25 yards, but it was so thick in this cedar swamp. Oops, sorry, dropped you again. So thick in this cedar swamp that you can barely see 5 to 10 feet in front of you. So that was a big relief. Then I start hearing him counting points on it. I hear him count out 9 points, and I'm not sure if he's messing with me or he's telling the truth, but either way, he's still got a nice buck. So I go over to take a look at it, and it is a tiny, just beauty rack. Big old crown on him, super tall tines. At the time, we actually thought that we had never seen this buck before, that we had never had him on camera, but at a later date, we did realize that it was the nice deer that had come into our backup blinds on Wednesday morning. So the morning that I first seen that forkhorn, that large, beautiful 9-point that my father-in-law shot was in our backup blind, standing perfectly broadside at 9 a.m. So needless to say, he was hunting that spot from there on out, and he actually seen it that night. He had an encounter with it, but just like the big bucks do, he barely stuck his head out. Something wasn't right. He didn't really like something that was going on, and he went right back into the woods. So that got his heart pumping though, and got him back in there. So finally Friday night, he ended up shooting it right at last light, just like when the big ones always come out. So that was really awesome. We got lots of pictures I'll post up for that. And after that, we really had nothing. A few does late at night. I think my brother-in-law seen a couple does just at last light, but they had just had us so patterned that even before, you know, the second or third week, they would be out, and after an hour after we leave and an hour before we come in. So that's basically it. I've been muzzleloading ever since, down to the spot where I bow hunted. Found lots of good sign. I just went and got my last trail camera for 2020, and we're gonna call this a year. So that was our 2020 season. Too bad I didn't get a little bit more footage. I didn't take a ton of footage because around here it's always dark. It's just dark inside my blinds, dark inside. It's dark when we go in, it's dark when we leave. So it's hard to get a lot of good footage unless you put something down right in the middle of the day, which I unfortunately didn't do, and no one was with my father-in-law when he took his. So you just got to take my word for it and see for yourself in the pictures. But we'll do some scouting this winter time, and we'll see you next season. We'll see you in the woods, and we'll see you walleye fishing here in a couple months. So stay tuned. MI North.